Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into the wild, mysterious, and honestly beautifully quirky journey of a young adventurer named Gemma and her incredibly loyal lemur sidekick, Milo. We're going to trace their steps all the way from a super shady deal in a tavern right up to a totally baffling discovery inside a hidden chest. So if you're into strange geography, broken compasses, and, well, highly questionable sailing companions, you are definitely in the right place. To help map this out chronologically, we'll hit four main stops. First, the Starlight Tavern deal, then sailing the Mystic Reed, third, the Forgotten Island, and finally, opening the chest. Let's get right to it. Section 1. The Starlight Tavern deal. Our journey actually kicks off about 3 weeks ago, right in the shadowy, music-filled corners of the Starlight Tavern in Harbortown. It's crazy how fast things can go wrong, right? A shady administrative meeting 3 weeks ago directly leads to Gemma and Milo being hopelessly lost at sea for 3 days, which then culminates in a sudden, violent shipwreck. It's the ultimate how it started versus how it's going situation. So the catalyst for this whole mess was a meeting at that tavern. Gemma sat down with this handsome, mustachioed sea merchant wearing a really nice tricorn hat. The guy was a total smooth talker. And here's the best part. Milo uses his prehensile tail to drop a coin pouch on the table. The merchant snags it with lightning speed, whispers some cryptic directions, and then just vanishes. Gemma and Milo are completely in awe of his mystique, right up until they hear him say, "You're welcome," from directly underneath the table. Yet he literally hid under the table just to seem mysterious before popping back up to grab his hat. And what exactly did this guy promise to get her on board? The most greatest treasure in the world. Grammatically suspicious? Oh, absolutely. But Gemma took it with a grain of sand. Regular colored sand at the time, of course. Even though she knew she was probably getting played by a guy who literally had corn stuck in his teeth, that terrible grammar was the ultimate hook. She was desperate for an adventure, and honestly, this was the best lead she'd had in months. Section 2. Sailing the Mystic Reed. Fast forward 3 weeks from that weird tavern deal, and we find our duo out on the open ocean. Now, they're sailing aboard the Mystic Reed, which is exactly 15 years after Gemma's parents left her. And you just have to appreciate the dynamic between these two. On one hand, you've got Gemma. She is highly practical, totally in her element, just loving the refreshing saltwater spray on her glasses. On the other hand, you have Milo. Milo is a lemur. He is a land mammal who fundamentally hates the fact that every single thing on their boat is wet all the time. But he brings this chaotic, fiercely loyal energy. He's her protector. A protector who, fun fact, at one point in the tavern, literally did not blink for 2 entire minutes. To give you a deeper sense of how Gemma's wonderfully practical mind works, think about how she spots their destination. She looks over the starboard side, then the port side. But how does she remember which is which? Pure, unadulterated logic. Left has 4 letters, port has 4 letters, starboard and right have entirely different letter counts, so she just completely ignores them in her memorization technique. It's brilliantly efficient, don't you think? Okay, this is absolutely crucial, so pay attention to this part. She has this slightly rusted dark blue compass hanging around her neck. As she's trying to remember the merchant's weird directions across the mossy channel due south of Heart Mountain, Milo points right at it. She taps the glass, but the jagged silver needle inside is completely lifeless. She complains it's totally broken, that it can't tell east from west or up from down. Keep this broken compass in the back of your mind, okay, because it is the key to literally everything that follows. Section 3. The Forgotten Island. Because, spoiler alert, Gemma gets incredibly frustrated, realizes she is hopelessly lost, and just kind of gives up. Just as she's shouting that the island is lost to the world, the boat violently shimmies and runs aground. Milo immediately throws his hands and his tail up in the air, his classic pose for denying responsibility, even though, let's be real, it's usually his fault. But as they step down the Jacob's ladder, they realize they actually found it, and they instantly run into these bizarre anomalies. The sand isn't normal. It's this mix of deep blue and dark green that perfectly matches the ocean. Plus, there's a simple vine-covered hut and a small cave handmade from brown stones right there on the beach. While Gemma is having this huge realization that they found the unfindable island, Milo is just completely unbothered. He grabs a fallen coconut, smashes it on a rock, and just starts drinking. I absolutely love this detail. We get this really funny inventory of the island's entire forest. It consists of exactly 3 trees. You've got a coconut tree, a slightly better coconut tree, and a third tree that is significantly smaller and definitively not a coconut tree. It just perfectly highlights how beautifully odd and curated this forgotten place really is. So Gemma decides to explore the hut. After politely apologizing to basically no one for breaking the door, she finds warm wooden embers under a metal pot and an empty tin box. Someone large had definitely been there recently, dusting off a chair. Thinking she's been completely hornswoggled by the merchant, she insists they go search the nearby cave. She tells Milo they need to check every nook and cranny. When Milo squeaks back at her, she firmly and hilariously clarifies a very vital distinction. A cranny is absolutely, fundamentally, an entirely different thing than a nook. Which brings us to our final stop, Section 4, opening the chest. Let's head inside the dark mouth of that red stone cave. As they walk down the surprisingly long dirt path into the interior, the midday sun totally vanishes. It's pitch black. Gemma finds a wall sconce with a torch and asks Milo to flint her. Now, they are usually great at making cozy fires, but their handoffs, yeah, they need some work. In the absolute darkness, Milo swiftly tosses the flintstone and absolutely nails Gemma directly in the forehead. It is such a great moment of levity right before things get incredibly weird. She does manage to light the torch, which reveals these deep red stone walls and the stunning gold-trimmed wooden chest right in the center of the room. But as they step closer, why is the broken compass shaking? Seriously, as she moves toward the chest, the rattle from the compass hanging around her neck gets louder and louder until it fills the whole room. That lifeless, jagged silver needle is suddenly vibrating out of control. Gemma pops the compass glass open and stops the needle, realizing it actually comes right out. Meanwhile, Milo is over by the chest, frantically jumping up and down and pointing at the lock. Now, despite years of having their own non-verbal best friend language, Gemma totally misreads the room. She looks at him and goes, "You want me to bake you a muffin, Milo?" He scoffs and points harder at the lock. She finally realizes her mistake, though, to be fair, jumping at a lock apparently looks exactly like Milo's highly specific muffin dance. And this is the ultimate payoff for that broken compass. It was never a navigation tool. It was a disguised key. Gemma pulls out the jagged silver needle, lines it up perfectly with the gold-trimmed keyhole on the chest, and slides it in. With the torch just flickering wildly in the background, she slowly turns it. It clicks, and the ancient chest pops wide open without a fight. So, what exactly is the most greatest treasure in the world? Gemma and Milo peer inside, completely expecting piles of gold or jewels. Instead, they see their own torchlit reflections, distorted by a blanket of ripples. The chest is full of dark, ancient water, and sitting perfectly calm right in the dead center of that water is a tiny floating boat. It is a completely surreal, logic-defying discovery. But before Gemma can even wrap her head around a tiny floating boat inside a box, the dead silence of the cave is completely shattered. She hears something she hasn't heard in years, the distinct jingle of her old favorite bell. Staring down into the chest, she just whispers a single cryptic phrase, "Oh, Bramblerot?" Who or what is Bramblerot? And how on earth does a tiny boat floating inside an ancient chest connect to a bell from Gemma's past? Those are the burning questions you should be asking yourselves right now. It completely flips their entire journey from the Starlight Tavern on its head. I'm going to leave you to ponder those mysteries as we wrap up today's explainer. Thanks so much for joining the expedition.